The Stanford Engineering Center for Global and Online Education has been around for over 70 years at this point. We began back in 1954 when Frederick Terman, who was then the Dean of the School of Engineering, created what is called the Honors Cooperative Program. And this program lives on today. We still support it. And this was an opportunity for working engineers at companies near Stanford's campus to enroll in Stanford master's degrees in the School of Engineering on a part-time basis. And the idea here was to encourage that kind of that relationship between industry and the academy, to allow working professionals to be able to pursue higher education while working, great benefit for the employees and a great benefit for the companies, and allowing, helping Stanford to bring some of that expertise from working professionals into the classroom, and found that there was a virtuous relationship there that really promoted and helped both sides of the coin. Over the years, we evolved. So we moved from being only available to those adjacent to Stanford campus to broadcasting as the Stanford Instructional Television Network in the late 60s. So we started broadcasting to companies in the Bay Area. That became a satellite network in the 90s. And then in the mid 90s, we started moving online, and we actually began delivering our first fully online master's degree in the late 90s. So the electrical engineering degree could be completed online. And at that time, we changed our name. Many of you may know us for this as the Stanford Center for Professional Development. And in the past 20, 25 years, we grew as SCPD, moving more and more of our operations and offerings online. And today, or the last year, we changed our name from SCPD to the Center for Global and Online Education to better reflect the way we had grown in the last 25 years. And today, the majority of what we offer is primarily online. Now, I mentioned that what Jonathan and I will be focusing on are credit-bearing courses that are available to online learners. But I did want to give you a sense of the full breadth of the offerings that are available through SEGO, which is how we pronounce the acronym. So you're looking at here is a full range of credentials. We'll talk about those yellow ones, but we can start here with these red ones. So these are the professional programs and professional courses. So that's what we call them. You can think of them as non-credit bearing courses. They're generally open enrollment, meaning anybody, you don't have to be a member of a particular organization in order to enroll or apply to them. You'll find most of those on our Stanford Online website. And we have a variety of credentials depending on the rigor of the course and what's expected of you that you can earn through these professional programs. And these there are a range of the way these programs are presented, everything from the classic on-demand self-paced courses that you're probably familiar with as online courses to rigorous cohort-based courses that are actually based on the credit-bearing courses, but aren't for credit. So these might be 10-week courses that require 10 to 12 hours of work a week on a topic like product management or artificial intelligence, and allowing you a really rigorous, in-depth understanding and mastery of some rigorous material or very technical material. In addition to those professional programs, we also offer, as we said, and what we'll be covering in more detail, these credit-bearing programs. So I mentioned the Honors Cooperative Program, which still exists today. It's a flexible master's degree for students matriculated at Stanford to pursue their master's degree, flexible way for them to pursue their degree. We also open up between 60 and 70 courses a quarter to what we call non-degree option students. So these are working professionals who submit an application to us that we then submit to departments and who apply on a course-by-course basis to take courses at Stanford. And the courses you can take are mostly within the School of Engineering, but some in the School of Medicine. But these are graduate level engineering courses. You take them, you're just like all the students on campus, it's the same course. You're taking it alongside those students, though you're taking it as an online student. You're earning a Stanford transcript. And if you take 3 to 4 of those courses, some of them can stack into a graduate certificate, which is an accredited credential and is usually 12 to 16 units. We can get a little bit more detail there. And finally, coming back to kind of our origins, it's worth mentioning that we still do support many of the master's degree here in the School of Engineering. And so a lot of the master's degrees in Stanford Engineering are available for students to pursue on a part-time basis with the option to do coursework online. Again, for the most part, these are the same master's degrees. and a student would elect to do them on a part-time basis. And again, the idea here is to give you flexibility in the way you pursue your degree. Now, we'll touch on those. That's not the focus of today. For those, if you're interested in applying to them, it's the same. You're applying to the same degree. You'd be applying through the department to get in that degree and then electing to do it on a part-time basis and possibly online. We can answer more questions about those. John, I see we have quite a few questions coming in right now. Should we pause and answer a few of those before we? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, we can take a couple of these. That's a good idea. Yeah, Hitesh has a question. Thanks, Hitesh, for your question. Can CEUs, which are continuing education units, from professional certificates be used for graduate credit? No, it's a different program. So CEUs can't be used towards graduate credit-bearing programs.
And I see a question about the Knight Hennessy Scholars Program. We do not operate or run the Knight Hennessy Scholars Program, so I'd reach out to that program directly if you have questions for it.
Yeah.
That's not covered by us.
People can apply for it. It's just, I think the deadline is coming up soon, probably like around about December time, or maybe January. But yeah, you can look at that program, but it's not something that our organization manages or runs.
I see a great question about our schedule and whether all courses will be available. This is a really good question. We can, I'll address it now briefly. Is if you are interested in a particular course and you want to earn a certificate, our schedule can change a lot year to year, quarter to quarter. I see the particular course, however, that was being asked about, Convex Optimization 1, is offered usually twice a year. So I'm not sure why you're not seeing that open, but we'll go through that in more detail. How to see when a course is open, but it's usually open in the summer, and I'm trying to think of the other quarter that's typically offered.
I'll take the question on GRE exams, Pax. So the question is from Alex: what's the average GRE test range acceptable for you guys? The best advice I can give you is to look at the department page. So if you're interested in like a master's degree in electrical engineering, they'll have information about the GRM requirements on their page, same with computer science, etc. Some of the departments don't require a GRE. There are a few of them out there, but quite a few do as well. In terms of the test range, I can't really guide you. Again, it will be on the department page, and they'll tell you, what they expect in terms of the types of exams being obviously verbal reasoning, quantitative reasoning, and analytical writing. So more information on the department pages.
So we have a lot more good questions, particularly about the master's degrees. So why don't we'll continue on, and some of this will be addressed, and then we'll circle back to some of those questions. I think a few of them will be answered as we move on. So I do want to, as the next step, how do these courses work, right? So again, these are courses that are already happening on campus. And most typically how they work is we schedule them in one of the rooms we operate on campus. We record and publish those recordings to Canvas, which is the learning management system that Stanford uses. So many students are joining in person. You would be going into Canvas. You'd be watching those lecture recordings either live, you could live stream them, or at your convenience after the fact. Now, I should put quotation marks around at your convenience because obviously you're required to keep up with all the academic assignments and deadlines for the course. So you need to watch them relatively soon after the lecture is delivered so that you can do the coursework that's required of you. Now, way back in the day, in 1954, when we were at the Instructional Television Network, a lot of the other aspects of these courses were happening in person or had to happen on site wherever someone was taking the courses from. But today, a lot of the other aspects of these courses, such as assignments and office hours, are already online to some degree. So typically, some subset of the office hours that are available for the class will be available online, often through video conferencing software like Zoom or Teams. The assignments would be submitted online, usually in Canvas through something like Gradescope. There will usually be discussion forums such as ED or something that's native to Canvas. And that's where you'll be doing a lot of your participation. What is required of those courses is going to vary a lot from course to course and can even vary from quarter to quarter. If a particular course has multiple instructors across the year, usually the learning outcomes remain the same, but instructors might have slightly different approaches to the assignments. The one piece, I said that almost everything now is online. The one piece that technically is not online is if you have in-person exams in that class, you will need to take your exam in person at your location. So that means you're going to have to find what we call an exam monitor to deliver that exam to you in person. So that will have to happen in person. A lot of people use things like testing centers or someone at their work, like a supervisor at work. We won't go into great detail on the exam process here. There's a lot more information on our website. But one other thing I'll add about that is you don't have to take the exam at exactly the same time that it's happening on campus, because again, this is designed, the whole programs are designed or imagined to be flexible for working professionals. And so generally you'll have a window in which to complete that, maybe a 24-hour window from when the exam starts on campus, so that you can find a time that fits your time zone or fits your work schedule. And finally, you'll be accessing a lot of these course materials through Stanford's secure systems, so you will get a Stanford email and login credentials during each quarter that you're actively enrolled. So those credentials are only active when you're taking a course. At the end of the quarter, when your course is finished and you're not enrolled in another course, they will become inactive. But that will allow you to access these resources such as Canvas. It'll allow you to access a lot of the online resources through the Stanford libraries, etc. So it allows you to have that access to the resources and materials that you will need to be successful in the class. Let me add, we'll pause for a second here after this slide, and take a few more questions if there are some coming in. But another thing, just broadly speaking, for you to consider if this sounds interesting to you, or maybe you're enrolled in a course for fall and you're trying to get more information about what it's like. There are some key considerations for success. These are graduate level courses that you will be taking. They're very hard courses. They're challenging courses, just like they would be in any graduate program. So but you have the added challenge is that you're potentially taking these as a working professional at a distance. And so that can be very challenging to students. It's a real opportunity to take the same course that's happening on campus alongside on-campus students, but that can be a challenge and an opportunity, as well as an opportunity. So it's important that you're really on top of it and forward-thinking. So make sure you know your key deadlines for each quarter. You can find the general academic deadlines on our site under the academic calendar. And that, again, you can link to it to find more information on our site. But you're also going to want to make sure, right as that course begins, make sure you're aware of the course deadlines as well. Now those usually won't be published or available until the first day of the course. But once those are available, you'll want to sort of sketch them out on your calendar. But even before you have those course level deadlines, you'll want to make sure you're ready to spend somewhere between 15 and 25 hours of coursework per week per course, right? So a lot of these are very intensive courses. So make sure you're setting aside ample time for study and to watch the recordings, do the assignments, etc. And as part of that, you want to make sure that you have a strong support network of friends and coworkers and other students, so that people are aware of the commitment you're putting into this individual course, and you have that support structure in place so that you can be successful throughout the quarter. And with that last point in mind of other students, is if you do enroll in a course, we really encourage you to attend our quarterly online orientation. That happens usually the week before or the first week of the quarter. So please join that if you can. And we also usually have one online social mixer during the quarter. And these are opportunities for you to meet those other students and to begin forming those groups. We also have a Slack channel that we'd encourage you to join. It's opt-in, so you do need to opt in to join it. And when you're enrolled, you're eligible to opt in. And that's another place for you to meet other students, to ask us questions, and to have that kind of support. John, I'm going to hand it over to you unless there are any questions you want to address right now.
Yeah, there's a couple of questions here before we proceed. I'll pick a few out and then maybe you can as well. Again, another question about CEUs, graduate application. Yeah, they're considered, but you can't transfer CEUs to a master's degree program. Shamim, what is the process for graduate certificate? Could you please elaborate on your question again? I'm not sure whether you mean applying or participating in the certificate program. Another question here about, this is a good question about, if I complete a graduate certificate and my credits can be potentially applied to a master's degree, does this give me conditional or early admission? No, it doesn't. It's no guarantee if you complete a graduate certificate. It's no guarantee that you'll get entry into the program, because the master's degree program are looking at your academic background beyond the graduate certificate, undergraduate degree, etc. So it's not a conditional admission. Having said that, it does look favorable, if you've completed Stanford graduate level courses, the rigor, the level, it shows that you're taking very similar courses to those that are offered through the master's degree. So there's that. And Pax is a good question for you. Are TA's sections recorded?
So that's a great question, and that can vary a lot, and that will often vary a lot by the TA and the course and even the instructor. So typically, for many of them, we will record TA sessions, or TAs will record them themselves. Sometimes TAs just run those sessions online over Zoom or something like that, and they'll be recording them over Zoom. Sometimes they won't record them, but they will just hold them over Zoom, right? So they may only be available for a live session. So it will depend a lot on the course. And it'll depend a lot on the TAs as well. But typically, yes, if there will be some section or some of the review sessions will be available online in addition to the office hours in most cases, some subset of them.
And one other question, Pax, that quite a few people have asked about, if you could comment on attending classes or lectures in person.
So again, this is an online program. So the expectation is that you will be completing it online. There can be opportunities to join in person with permission, with the appropriate permissions. But again, the expectation is that you would be online. So if you were admitted or approved to take a course, we can go into more detail and answer more of those questions if you're a local student.
Okay. So I think we're good to move on with my segment, if you're okay with that, Pax.
Sounds good.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you, everybody, for attending today's graduate program information session. As Pax mentioned earlier on, my name is Jonathan Notman. I am Senior Director of Client Success and Engagement for our organization. My segment will primarily talk about the various programs that we have, applying, how the programs work, etc. So we'll start off, as you can see with this slide. The first subject I want to talk about is the non-degree program, or as the acronym states there, NDO. There are a lot of acronyms with our program, so you might need to get used to them if you haven't undertaken them before. So the non-degree program, okay, so basically you're not being matriculated through this program into a master's degree. It's your ability to take individual courses, graduate level courses for credit individually, or if you prefer, you can actually have the courses that you take come towards a certificate if you choose that route. So let's talk about applying first. This is a non-matriculated program, as I just mentioned. It's not a degree program. However, you can apply to undertake graduate level courses that are typically formed as part of a master's degree program. So it's a non-matriculated program. You can apply during any quarter, right? So Stanford University is on a quarter system. We have autumn, winter, spring, and summer. You can apply during any quarter or in between. So the application can be submitted at any time. Good news is, if you're considering enrolling or applying to enroll in either individual courses for credit or as part of a graduate certificate program, if you're looking for autumn quarter, we've got just under 2 weeks left for applications to be sent in. The deadline is the 7th of September. So midnight, Sunday evening, Monday morning, 7th of September. So if you're considering autumn, look out for that deadline. If it's too soon, you can apply for winter applications for winter quarter open at the end of October. So if you go on to our website, there's a lot of information there about the various application enrollment cycles. For the non-degree program, you will complete a simple application online. It doesn't take too long. There's around about 6 or 7 sections. It's not as long and rigorous as an application for a master's degree. Having said that, we do expect you to provide information about your academic background, professional background, if you have any, statement of purpose. You would have to provide things like your transcript for your undergraduate degree or master's degree, if you have one, so that we can review your academic background and make sure that you fit the kind of academic requirements of either the course or the program. As Pax said earlier on, the program is flexible. You don't have to take courses during every single quarter. You can take a course or two for autumn, take a break in winter if you need, and then start again in spring. So it's really flexible. You can take a couple of quarters off while things are happening in your life, or work or whatever, and then come back and complete them. It's non-continuous enrollment. Again, that's based on what I just said, flexibility. You don't have to keep taking courses every quarter if you need to take a break for whatever. And obviously, the main requirement for applying for the non-degree program is you are required to have an undergraduate bachelor's degree with a typically with a GPA of 3.0 or higher, depending on the type of course or program you're applying for. I'll talk a little bit more about the non-degree certificate program and its courses. These are accredited non-degree programs. We are accredited by WASC, Western Association of Schools and Colleges. So we have accredited non-degree programs such as graduate certificates and their courses. Typically, you're required to maintain a B or better or a B average, depending on the graduate certificate that you pursue, right? So certain academic departments with their graduate certificates you've got to get a B in every single course, and some are a B average. So be mindful of that. For graduate certificates, you're required to complete the number of allocated courses in 3 years. That's the time that you have to complete courses. Now, considering that graduate certificates typically have 4 courses on average, that's totally doable based on the fact that you can take a little bit of time off if you need to. But bear in mind that some certificates have a variety of number of courses that you need to complete. Plus, they also maybe have something like a core course requirement section and elective requirement section. So again, depending on the graduate certificate you're interested in, be mindful about that, which courses you need to complete, when, and the number of courses, etc. One of the unique things that I really love about the non-degree program is, these are graduate level courses. This is your ability to try out, test, if you like, graduate level courses at Stanford University. If you really like the non-degree program and you really enjoy completing courses, and you are considering applying to the master's degree, if you apply to the master's degree and are admitted, you have the ability to apply up to 18 units of credit earned through the non-degree program. That is obviously a conversation you'd have with the academic department at the time once you're admitted. What courses can I apply, how many units, etc. When you consider that a master's degree is in a School of Engineering is typically 45 units, you're almost halfway there, almost. So 18 units is a substantial amount of units that you can transfer if you are admitted. And I always say if you're admitted. Okay, moving on, we'll talk about the part-time master's degree program. It's affectionately known right now as the Honors Cooperative Program, so the acronym HCP. So this is the part-time online master's degree program. So again, I'll talk about applying, and then I'll talk about the actual program itself. So if you are considering applying for the part-time master's degree, it's the same application as if you would complete one for a full-time degree. It's the same. It's no different. Okay, you have to complete the application, again, send in transcripts. If you're required to do GRE, you have to send in GRE scores, et cetera, academic references. Again, it's more of a rigorous application than the non-degree program, but rightly so. It's a matriculated full Stanford University degree. So the application is the same, okay? It's no different. You will be applying through the department. So you go to the Stanford Graduate Admissions website, and then, depending on which degree program you're applying, the application will go through the department for consideration. Most of the departments, not all, have a deadline, usually around about December time or so, for matriculation the following academic year, typically autumn. So typically around about December-ish time, maybe January, you would, the application deadline is then, and if you are successful in being admitted to the program, you would start the following autumn. You would probably good advice would be to check the department for details on deadlines. So if you're interested in, example, management science and engineering, go to the management science and engineering academic department website and check on their pages for information on deadlines. That's the best resource that you can refer to for details and deadlines of applying. Okay, so in terms of the degree program itself, you are a fully matriculated student. If you choose part-time, you have the rights and privileges as a full-time student would, so you're a fully matriculated student. You're part-time, if you are part-time status, you can come in person, or you can do them online, or a variety of both. You might decide, if you're local, I'll come in for 1 quarter, and then the next quarter you might think I'll do it remotely, even though I live locally. So you have the ability and right to come to campus to attend in person, or if you prefer, you can undertake your course online. One thing to note that not all master's degree programs in the School of Engineering can be done remotely. Some of them can. Some of them can be completed fully online. Some of them can be completed partially online, okay? So again, it varies by department. For example, if you're considering management science and engineering, material science and engineering, or a department like that, it has to be completed partially online, partially in person. I think the same for Aero Astra, if you're considering that program, again, partially online, partially in person. So, but a lot of that really is determined by which courses you want to complete. You know, you might have a particular preference for specialization, and that might not be aligned for online or remote study. So bear all these factors in mind. And again, the department pages provide a lot of that information. And the last thing I want to note in this segment is in all degrees, only some concentrations are available online. Okay, so really kind of do your research on the department page and, you know, make sure you understand which degrees and which concentrations are fully online, partially online, etc. So that's good research to do. With that being said, Pax, let's move on to the next slide.
I think this covers a fair amount of what we went through before, but
it's a bit repetitious, but again, you know, non-degree program, apply anytime, make sure you got your university transcripts, and they have to be official transcripts, by the way. We can't do screenshots or unofficial transcripts. They must be official university sealed transcripts. You have to submit your official identification with your application. That's typically like passport, driving license, that kind of thing. And as I said earlier on, you have to write the brief statement of purpose. If you enroll, here's a new piece of information again through the non-degree program. Make sure that you meet the course and department prerequisites. Some courses that you might desire to take will have a prerequisite like linear algebra. So just make sure you're aware of those when you do your research for course selection. Enroll any quarter as courses offered. So not all courses are offered every quarter, but you know they're offered during the academic year. Please make sure you plan. You know, if there's a specific course you've got in mind, please make sure that you plan and are aware of when it's offered. As I mentioned earlier on, the grade, you know, B or better or B average. You can skip quarters, as I mentioned earlier on. The graduate certificate is typically 3 to 4 courses to complete a graduate certificate program. As I mentioned earlier on, 3 years. You will get a Stanford University transcript. I didn't mention earlier this earlier on, whether you take courses for credit through the non-degree program or through part of a graduate certificate, you will earn a Stanford transcript. As well as the graduate certificate, we provide digital credential through the graduate certificate program. I think we're going to go on to the next slide, which is again a bit of a recap of the master's program, I believe. Is that correct, Pax?
No, it's just this tuition now.
Oh, okay, tuition. Okay, great. Tuition for academic year 25-26 is $1,575 per unit of credit. That's the same for the non-degree program as well as the honors core program. And a typical 4-unit course is $6,300. I talked a bit about the graduate certificate, which is typically completing 3 to 4 courses, is usually 12 to 16 units. You're looking at around about $18,000 to $25,000 in total for that certificate program. You're not required to pay it all at once. You can pay it on a course-by-course basis, so don't think that you need to pay all your tuition in advance.
I think that's it, John, and we'll. I think we have quite a few questions coming in, so maybe worth trying to address some of those. I'm going to put this next slide up just so we see, and we can come back to you know, the enrollment period. But one thing that to emphasize again that John mentioned in the prior slides is that for the non-degree program for graduate certificates, you are approved on a course-by-course basis, and that when you apply, your application is not submitted to a department for approval until you enroll in a course. So we keep it on file, and then, so let's say you apply now, but you don't enroll in a course, you won't hear from us about whether you've been approved, because it is only done once you enroll in a course. If you enroll a course in the autumn or winter, we will send your application to the relevant department. They will review it, and you know, they'll let you know what they you know, whether they approve or reject it. And so that's just important to note. It's a course-by-course basis, and even if you're approved for that course, you're not, you know, approved or admitted into a program. You would then take that course, and for the next course, we would keep your application on file. We'll submit it to the next department, maybe the same department, along with your Stanford transcript. There are a couple other questions coming in that I wanted to just quickly try to address here. I think, John, you mentioned, this is a wonderful opportunity for people to try out graduate courses and programs. And I know for some of the master's programs, they do encourage you to start as an NDO student. And that's part of the reason, especially if it's a program that's primarily a part-time program. There are some, in biomedical data science or chemical engineering that are primarily only through the part-time program with the option to do coursework online. So they're really geared towards working professionals, and so they want to encourage you to try it out before you get admitted into the master's degree, because it is very different. If you didn't work in college or as an undergraduate, it's very different to be a full-time working engineer while taking graduate level courses, and they want to make sure you're familiar with what that workload is and what the experience is like. Someone also mentioned, or John also mentioned, that the up to 18 units that you complete as an NDO may be applied to the master's degree. But as someone mentioned in the questions, those units do have to be, the courses that do have to be relevant to the master's degree you're pursuing. So not every course that we offer would count towards the requirements of a master's degree. So for instance, there may be a handful of lower level, undergraduate level courses that we offer that might help satisfy prerequisites, but themselves could not count towards those 45 units towards the degree. So as John said, it's important to do your research and take a look at what the course requirements are for a particular master's degree if you're interested in them. And John, did you want to jump in? Or I had one or two more.
Yeah. So there's some repeated questions which we won't go over again because we've already answered them. But here's a good one for you. If you could take this one, I'll take the next. It's a question: can we mix and match courses to create our own graduate certificate for the non-degree program?
That's a great question. So you cannot create your own certificate. That said, you don't have to pursue a certificate. You can go ahead and take any courses that you want, as long as you're being approved by the departments to take those courses. So you don't have to follow a certificate. There are lots of students who come in and really are just interested in one or two courses, or are not interested in a particular certificate, and they're interested in taking one artificial intelligence course, a course from biomedical data science, a course from chemical engineering. And so they might take a variety of graduate coursework, and as long as you continue to do well and you're approved by the departments to continue taking those courses, then you can take those courses. So you don't need to be locked into a graduate certificate or pursue a graduate certificate. You can take individual courses. We do frequently get the question about substituting courses. So that is possible with a petition. So if you're pursuing a certificate and maybe it requires 3 electives, and a particular course you want is not included is not an option of those electives, you can petition the department to add a different course. That it's up to the discretion of the department whether or not to approve that. So.
Okay, thanks for that, Pax. I'll take the next question. This is a really good question, actually. How to better prepare for the Honors Corps program in management science and engineering? What credentials would count most? That's a really good question. My opinion and advice would be, obviously the first thing is your academic background, right? It's your credentials, what undergraduate degree you have, or your education generally, what you've taken, what your grades are like, etc. That's obviously one of the most prominent pieces of information they look at. Another good one to point out is academic references. That's always a very strong component of the application. For somebody to be able to, testify and provide information on your suitability for the program. That's really a good kind of credential or good data point to remember. And then aside from that, really telling a compelling story through, your essay component of the application. I think that's critical too. One other question I have here, Pax, that I can take. Question about GPA. Somebody saying, what if I've got below 3.0 GPA? Does work experience count to kind of counterbalance that? Unfortunately, no. Work experience is considered, or your professional experience is considered, but cannot replicate the minimum requirements for the program. So unfortunately, no. It's 3.0 or higher.
A couple other questions coming in here that are good. So there's a question specifically about submitting your autumn grades to an application for a degree this year. I don't, we don't control when, so the grades usually have a deadline. It's going to be after the deadline for the application. We obviously can't submit those earlier. You may be able to speak to an instructor or something to have them on file earlier, but that would be something that would be may not be able to happen because there may be assignments that are just due after the grades are due, but it'd also be something to talk about with your particular teaching team, with the teaching team for the course.
Yeah, good question here, Pax, about the Honors Core program. Is a U.S. residency requirement still in place for fully online HCP? There are for the
it's
Honors
computer
Core
science. Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, I'll give you some examples. So there are certain master's degree programs that can be completed online that you don't need to be a resident. But the most profound one is computer science. You have to be a resident of the US to undertake that program online. You cannot take the computer science honors co-op program overseas. There is a department requirement for you to be resident. So, but there are some online master's degree programs for the honors co-op program that can be completed overseas. It's just not computer science, unfortunately. Pax is a good one for you. Maybe you could take this question. If we've previously taken the compressed professional development equivalent of a particular course, are we disqualified from taking the full graduate course for academic credit?
I don't think so. I would want more information about, because I'm not sure what course you're referring to, but if, for instance, you've taken any of the AI professional courses, you wouldn't be disqualified from taking the credit-bearing course as well. That would be fine.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It seems, I would say, no, you'd be fine. I don't think there's any, in my experience, that there's any kind of disqualification if you take a professional education course through our organization and take the credit-bearing version.
Great question about what if you're not in the same time zone. So most of these courses, right, they're happening on campus, and the expectation would be that you won't have to join the course itself real time. There can be exceptions to that. And in fact, in most courses, there won't be an opportunity to join the lectures, participate real time in the lectures. Like they may not have, two-way conferencing in the lecture hall itself because they're giant lecture halls with 500 students. But the expectation, the other side of that is the expectation is that you won't be joining, you don't have to join the lectures real time. And that's again, because our typical learner is someone who's a working professional 9 to 5. So they wouldn't be able to join anyway because they're in their job when their lecture is happening, or they're in a different time zone and they aren't able to join. So as we mentioned earlier, the way that generally works for lectures is that we are recording them in the classroom, and they are available for live stream, if you want to watch it real time. But again, maybe that real time participation is not available, or it'll be available after the course is finished to watch on demand. So what we see for a lot of students is they will, maybe they get home at night and they watch their lectures at 8 or 9 p.m., later at night before going to bed, as opposed to while the lecture is happening. Again, you will need to keep on top of academic deadlines, so you can't just watch it probably would be hard to watch all the lectures on the weekend because you're probably going to have assignments due along the way. So that's one way that people do it. And again, there will be other, as we've mentioned, there may be office hours and other things that you do have to join real time because that's how office hours work. And so you would either if you couldn't join office hours, you might ask the teaching team if there's another time that's available, or post questions in the online forums where you can have them answered kind of asynchronously as the teaching teams get there. But there are a lot of opportunities for you to participate in that way. That's a great question.
So I have a couple more I can quickly answer, Pax. I'll rattle through these. I believe the question here is, can a previous master's degree grade or GPA count towards program or course requirement? Yes, it can. That is considered. So your undergraduate degree and your master's degree GPAs are considered separately. There's no cumulative between the two. They look at either by themselves. Question here, a good question about the non-degree program. Can I just take graduate courses indefinitely without completing it? you can continue to take courses for credit as long as you wish. And some students with us, they don't, have them applied to a graduate certificate, but so you can just continue to take courses, and definitely if you wish. However, if you want to have the courses that you take come towards certificate, it's not going to be 20 years down the line or anything like that, because courses sometimes are sunset and no longer counted towards a certificate. So bear that in mind. So there isn't the infinite shelf life on the courses you complete. But you can take courses and continue to take them as long as you wish. And then you don't have to join another ND or graduate certificate program or anything like that. You just continue to take courses as long as you wish. But bear in mind, if you want them to count towards certificate, there is not an infinite amount of time that you can just wait.
Let's see here. John, there's a good question earlier that I wanted to circle back to, which was, prerequisites, sequence of courses. So we do our best to make sure that we always have all the courses you need in a sequence. We don't always make prerequisites available. So a lot of these are graduate level courses. And so the expectation is you would have undergraduate level background in, the particular subject. So it may be the case that, for instance, a particular math class that you need, or even something like fundamentals of circuits, or those kinds of courses that you would need in order to take a course that we don't offer. And so the expectation would be either that you've completed it as part of your undergraduate degree, or you would complete it, at a community college or a similar accredited institution in order to meet those prerequisites. And so that was a good question. In terms of sequence of courses, someone was saying, there are some certificates where, you need to take 2 out of 3 courses, and one is a prerequisite for the next, and that one's a prerequisite for the final course. So again, we do our best to make sure those are available every year. Sometimes even the university doesn't offer those classes every year, but it is something we try to do. And I would just encourage you to go back and just look at the schedule, and you can see when they're typically offered on Stanford's schedule. You can see it in our catalog that when those courses have been last offered.
So a couple more questions, Pax, so we can quickly sneak in here. There was a question about international degrees. What's the process for transferring transferring scores and grades to GPA? The academic departments quite simply have a conversion system that is normal for most international universities. They use that. We don't do it. Our organization doesn't do it, but the academic departments within the School of Engineering do. So, and it's quite common. Another really good question. What's the notation on your degree if you're taking courses online? It would be because it would be the honors cooperative program, and it would say that on your degree certificate. So it would be completed your program through the honors cooperative program. It would list all the courses, credits, grades, and GPA.
But it is the same master's degree. I mean,
it is exactly the same master's degree. It's a part-time master's degree. It's not any lesser or anything like that. It's you've taken it in a part-time capacity. Simple as that.
Let's see. We still have some questions coming in here. Let's see if I got
question here about Pax about auditing courses. We don't offer course auditing.
Yeah. We don't offer. I will say, though, we do make a lot of materials available on our YouTube channel. There's a link down on the console itself. So if you click there, probably every quarter we publish 1 or 2 sequence of lecture courses. Again, mostly high-level engineering courses. That's a great place for you to go. You can review those materials. You can see what the recordings themselves are like. I'll also say that a lot of the courses, particularly in computer science, have public-facing course websites that will include their syllabi or their syllabus, course logistics, often current or future assignments. That's another really valuable resource for you to take a look if you're thinking about a course, or maybe you just want to self-study. You can go take a look at what's available and what they cover in the class, and if available, and they're often linked from the course site, prior recordings that we have available on YouTube, and that allows you the opportunity to go through and review those materials. So, yeah.
Here's a very good question, Pax. I think it's worth repeating again. Can the the computer science master's degree at Stanford be taken from internationally? No. Computer science academic department have a strict policy that you have to be resident in the US to take an online degree through their program. One great question here, and we get this from time to time, not often. If my bachelor's degree is from an international country, would you and I have the original diploma, etc. Can I get it notarized and interpreted, into English for maybe applying to Stanford? Yes, you can send that to the World Education Services, WES. You can look them up online. They provide a notarization and language transfer service, so you can get your degree, diploma, whatever it is, whatever program you completed internationally overseas, transferred and notarized by their services. There's a small charge, so be aware of that. But yes, that can be done through their services.
Seeing some of the same questions here. Let's see here. So good question about just, this challenge. If you were admitted into a master's degree program and you chose to pursue it online, and it had that option, or maybe you're a non-degree student remotely, in terms of this idea of how do you network or connect with students. It can be a challenge. We do try to make those opportunities available. I would say a lot of students, what they'll do if they're in the master's degree program, they will come out, and they'll visit campus occasionally, maybe end of year, or if there are big project aspects of a particular course, they might fly out for those projects. Some students, don't come to campus until they graduate if they can, right? So they come at the very end and they just attend for graduation. But I think that'll, there are different ways to engage with students and with the broader community. And probably the best way is through your courses themselves. So meeting other students through the courses, through the forums, through the Slack channels, trying to form some of those relationships. We have a lot of, kind of stories of coincidence or something where a student is taking a course and it turns out that another student who's taking it online lives literally on the same block that they do. And so then they form a study group. So there are a lot of opportunities to try and network and form those connections. But, you always try different ways to do that.
Question here from based on NDO application. Can I edit my old NDO application if I decide to pursue a different grad certificate? Yes. Just email us, reach out to us, and we'll be happy to help you. We'll release the application that was submitted and approved back to you, and you can edit it and then submit it again. So just email us, please, the person who asked that question, and we can arrange for you to edit it.
I think we've gotten to most of the questions. I did want to just reiterate, if you are interested, I encourage you, or even if you're just thinking about it, I encourage you to take a look at the courses that are open this autumn. Again, you don't need to apply or enroll now in autumn. If you're interested in taking them, you could also do it in winter or spring if the course that you're interested in and you're qualified to take is available then. Again, each quarter we have somewhere between 60 and 70 courses that are happening on campus that we are helping extend to an online audience. If you are interested in autumn, the enrollment closes on September 7th. So we would need your application and your enrollment in by then in order for you to be considered for the course. But if you miss it, the winter enrollment opens on October 20th. I forget its closing date, but I think it's around December 6th or something like that. So it closes in early December. And then that quarter begins in early January. And the autumn quarter begins on September 22nd. So it's coming up in about a month when the quarter begins. And we do offer, although primarily within the School of Engineering, I'd encourage you to take a look at the sort of full range of courses. We do often offer a fair number through the School of Medicine as well. So of course, in biomedical data science, epidemiology, and translational medicine, and within the School of Engineering, everything from computer science to civil and environmental engineering. Let's see here, some other questions. I think there's some specific questions we might have to follow up with offline if you want to email our client success engagement team. If you have specific questions, again, about a particular master's degree, I again would take a look at the department's page. They will usually have the requirements there. And usually, if it is available on a part-time basis, what depth areas you might be able to complete online, if that's what you're interested in.
Some other questions, Pax. Can I take extra classes within a certificate? Yes, you can take as many as you wish. Even if you complete the certificate, you continue to take courses within that program if you wish. And again, a question about if a course is approved by department, can I take it anytime? You should really take it during the quarter that it's offered. So if you're approved to take a course because you're enrolled in a course that's offered during autumn, you should really take it during autumn rather than delay to spring.
And I think just as a practical and logistics, if you were to enroll in the course, be approved, and then say, I don't want to take it, we would drop you from the course and we would just resubmit the application. So again, they'd be reviewing the same application. So you should, in theory, be approved for the next course unless something has changed in between those. But just logistically, we wouldn't be able to hold that approval.
Yeah, we don't have the kind of, we don't have the opportunity for you to pick and choose if you're approved to take a course, when to take it. You're approved for that quarter. That's essentially the situation.
I think that, so I see there's some more questions. And again, I would encourage you, if we didn't get to your question or if there needs some more clarity, please take a look at our website. And again, we'll be updating it and hopefully making that site as well even clearer and easier to navigate for people who are interested in these programs. But wanted to thank all of you again for joining us today. We really appreciate your time and we hope to see you again sometime in the future.
Thanks, everybody.